Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine and I have a homeschool haul to share with you today. Now the majority of these items are from A Child's Dream, so they're a little bit more Waldorf inspired, but I also do have some books to share with you as well as some games and some other supplies. So the first big old box here is from A Child's Dream. I'm going to set this aside just for a minute and share with you some of these items first, and then we're going to dive into that box. All right, so the first thing I want to share with you are the new pencils that we got. These are black wing pencils and I got 3 different sets. Now we've been using these for several years now and I really love them, but we had mostly the soft pencils left behind and so we needed to order some new ones. So this is like a soft lead pencil, and so I didn't reorder any of these, but I did reorder the erasers that go on the end because they do have replacement erasers. And we don't use these ones too much in our schoolwork just because it will smear a little bit more, and this is great for drawing and other things. And it is soft, so if you have a student who presses really firmly, then this will be a softer lead. And if you have or if you don't press very firmly, then this will still mark really easily versus a firm pencil lead, and by lead it's really graphite. So this one is one that's a bit more on the firm side, and so you can see that it's kind of hard to tell, but it marks a little bit softer or like less pigmented. And so if you have a student who presses really hard, then you might find that the firm pencils work well because you're already pressing hard, or you might find that the soft pencils work better because they're already pressing so hard that you don't want them to, like, say, damage the paper. So there, you can play around with what will work best for your students. Just know that the soft pencils do smear more and the firm pencils don't smear probably at all or hardly at all, but they have a lighter tone on the paper. So the ones that we got replaced were the Black Wing Pearl, I think also the Palomino. This was also the same one if you are familiar with these kinds of pencils. And this one is the balanced pencil, so it is most similar to, I am assuming, a number 2 pencil, which is the kind that you're probably using typically in just regular schoolwork and especially taking tests. And so it comes with the light blue pencil eraser, but we also had some pink ones that my daughter just wanted to change them out. So we've already sharpened a couple of them. She's going to primarily use these ones for her schoolwork, and I will too, but I'm using up the old ones. And then we also have firm and extra firm. So I'll show you these ones as well. And so this one will not smear as much and it's a little bit lighter. And this one is even more firm. And this one is the extra firm kind. And these ones are in the natural, like the natural barrel. And these are all cedar wood, I believe. And the reason why I like these over other pencils, and actually there was a pencil that we bought in bulk one year. I think we bought maybe 144 pencils, maybe even 2 packages of 144 pencils. And they were like my favorite pencil. And when we finally ran out and we needed to replenish our supply, I discovered the Black Wing pencils. It was from a little shop in New York, and they had all kinds of pencils from all over the world. It was a really great opportunity to get an assortment of pencils, and then these ones ended up being some of our favorites, and so we've just reordered these so that we have enough for our schoolwork as well as the replacement erasers, which is great because a lot of times you still might have pencil left and the eraser top is done, or because they have little like eraser holders, sometimes these would break because the kids would be taking them off and playing with them, or the erasers would be so little that you couldn't use it, or in some cases, and this is especially with our old pencils, not these kind, but the erasers would dry up and become hard and then they wouldn't erase at all. So I really like the option to have like an eraser replacement. Okay, let's move on because I could talk about pencils all day long. And we still use paper and pencil, so that's and fountain pens. So we don't do a lot of our work on the computer or typing things out. So we still have quite an assortment of pencils. Okay, so we have some Professor Noggin's games to share with you. We love the Professor Noggin's series, and we've been using these games for many years in all of our different main lesson blocks and unit studies. We didn't have the Ancient Civilizations one, and we just finished a unit, and we're still partially in a unit for Ancient Civilizations. We also got the History of the United States, which is a unit that will be coming up in the future. And if you're not familiar with these card games, and also they did change the packaging, so you might still see some of the old packaging. I think that the cards are the same as far as the same content. Some things may have been updated, but the way that they are laid out is different. In the past, they had them in the landscape format. Now they have them portrait side by side. And so you have on the back of each card, you'll have questions, some for a student or, maybe easier, although, you never know, students are quite smart. And then you have the scholar. And so these are the ones that if I am familiar with the things, then I'll have my student give me the teacher questions, or the scholar questions, and I'll ask my student the easier questions. And then it has like an image on the other side. Oh, this is different. The images on the previous cards were all hand drawn, and so these look like they are photograph images. Now, the way that we play these games is that we will use them for our opening activities whenever we're doing a unit that corresponds with the game itself, or sometimes we might use the games as a review for some of the lessons that we've done before. And they are trivia based. So if you are not familiar with any of the information, any part of that subject area at all, then this game might not be so great. But they do ask some trivia based questions. So if you have a little bit of familiarity with the subject area, then this is a really great way to kind of test your knowledge. And the way that we'll play is that we rarely play with the whole deck, because for time, we try to make these very short games that we can include in our opening activities. So we may only just play for, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and we'll just choose maybe 5 or 8 cards a piece. And then we will ask each other the questions. If you get them right, you get the card. And at the end, we just see who has the most cards. So that's how we play them. And so we have Ancient Civilizations, and we also have the History of the United States. And so, so this is the new version. I do have the old version that has the illustrated. They're all illustrated. These ones are all, except for that part, but they're all photographs, which is different. I kind of like the illustrations, but and the dice is a little bit different as well. Yeah, so those are some of the updates that I've noticed so far, and we haven't gotten. I don't have a new and an old of the same game itself to really go card by card to see what the other differences are. But I do love these games. I highly recommend them. We've really enjoyed them. It's a great trivia based game, and the only times that we really have trouble playing the game is if we're using the game at the beginning of a unit or main lesson block, when we just don't have enough information and we're just getting all of them wrong and we just don't know. Okay, one more game I want to share with you before we dive into some books is Mancala. I'm sure that you are familiar with this game. We have been seeing this for years and years and years, and my daughter played it at a cousin's house not too long ago and really wanted to include it. So we went ahead and got that, and we will use these kinds of games as part of our opening activities. Now, we just are in the middle of, well, I should say we're about to finish up our Ancient Civilizations main lesson blocks and unit studies. And I had pretty much very little to no resources on our Ancient Persia unit. And I ended up picking up a lot of things from the library before I could order them. And then when I went to go order some of the books, they weren't readily available. So I was so disappointed. I can't show you some of those things, but you still can see the books that we used for our Ancient Persia main lesson block. That the link to that video playlist and that blog post are down in the description box below if you want to see some of the other resources we use for Ancient Persia. But I did want to add this book. So we're done with Ancient Persia, but we're still going to read this book as our opening activities for our Ancient Egypt unit, which we're nearly done with. And then we may just stop our history for the remainder of the year and pick it up again next year, because we tend to do our history in the winter months. We just follow that kind of rotation for our main lesson blocks. This one's called Inspiring Persian Stories for Awesome Kids. Interesting title, but I got it because I felt like it just almost looks like it's self-published. So I haven't read through it yet. I don't know the quality of the stories. The illustrations are definitely not the kind that I would go for normally, but it was really hard to find stories for ancient Persia. At least when I was looking, there was one book that I really, really loved. I believe the author's name was Virginia Schomp, and she does a few other historical books or history books. And I liked that a book included some of the stories of the ancient civilization rather than just the history or, the artifacts or the clothing, the food, those kinds of things. It included some of the stories. And by stories, I mean the folklore, the folktales, the mythology, those kinds of stories. And the reason why I include a lot of those kinds of stories in our units is to understand the belief system of these ancient civilizations. And so these stories, I am hoping, are similar in that regard, that they somehow give insight to the belief system of, honestly, I don't think this is ancient Persia. This is probably just Persia in general, but that was the reason why I picked up this book. So we will read it, and I can let you know about it either as part of our ancient Persia main lesson block review or in some other capacity. So that is one of the books that we got. The other book that I got was The Theory of Colors. This is Johann, I'm going to say the name wrong probably, not Goethe, but I think Goethe is what I just learned, and I apologize if I've mispronounced that name. So we did a handwork conference, a Waldorf Handwork conference recently, and one of the themes was color. And so I picked up this book to continue to familiarize myself with these principles. And this will probably be more, it would be more, I could probably more include it more in the watercolors that we would have done with the children when they were a little bit younger. And now when we're hitting, say, upper elementary and middle school, the art forms change a bit more, and we're doing more with charcoal and more of a black and white and gray versus like the really beautiful rich colors that you're doing a lot more in the younger grades. And so I'm not sure how this will weave its way into our schooling in middle school as much as it would have been really helpful when my children were a little bit younger. Although I have to say that even as we get into the middle school years and even like high school, but like say just the first or second year of high school, even though the curriculum calls for a lot more, like say charcoal drawings, black and white, more perspective drawing, pencil drawings, those kinds of things, I still end up including a lot of watercolors in our lessons. Okay, so that is this book that I am excited to dive into and share with you. The next, actually, let me show you this book first. And this is also from A Child's Dream, but from a previous order. This is called World Tales for Family Storytelling. This is volume 3. There is also a volume 1 and a 2 that I don't have, and I'm going to assume are similar to the stories that are in this book. I love just traditional stories and fables from around the world, and this one is for children aged 8 to 11, and it includes 51 traditional stories. So these stories are going to be from different parts of the world, and the ones that we've read were associated with our ancient civilizations unit. So we read Iran as part of our ancient Persia main lesson block, and then we read the Iraq stories as part of our ancient Mesopotamia unit. It also has Egypt, which for our ancient Egypt unit, and then India for our ancient India unit. And then there are other locations mentioned. There's Serbia, Germany, Inuit, Russia, and then a lot more. So I like this as to include these stories that you may not typically find in other curricula. They are pretty rich in the Waldorf curriculum, and maybe others that I don't know about, but the traditional curricula, you may not find these stories as often. So it's great to add this in to supplement whatever curriculum you're using. And the way that we use this book is that we will read one story as part of our opening activities, and they're fairly short. In some cases, they were like less than a minute or two long, and in other cases, maybe less than 5 minutes, but they're really short, and it's a great way to include something in your opening activities. And in this way, you could actually include quite a few things in your opening activities before you get to your main lesson. And it could be a variety of things from mental math to trivia games to stories. And it really rounds out a part of the education before you dive into a very specific and deep aspect of your lesson. Okay, the next 3 books are for our mineralogy unit that's coming up. And while we do have a lot of books on geology and mineralogy currently, there were 2 that were very specific that have been on my wish list for a long time that I keep forgetting to get. And when I was getting these, I also found this book on rocks, and it says a very short introduction, and that really was appealing to me. And when I looked online, it only had maybe about 100 pages, and I thought that was even better because I don't want something that's so deep when I am reviewing the information that I need in order to present the lessons. So I thought this would be a great resource to get information when I'm presenting these lessons. So I won't use this as a read aloud with my daughter. She's still a little bit young to have this be assigned reading. This is maybe more high school or college level in my opinion, but it is a great resource if you're looking, well, I should say I'm anticipating it to be a great resource if you as a teacher are looking to have some background information when presenting these lessons. I haven't read it yet. This is in preparation for our geology unit. And I like that it was just so small and tidy. I didn't want something too big and involved. Okay, the next 2 books that I'm super excited about are Geology Underfoot in Southern California and Roadside Geology in Southern California. They're both by the same publisher, I believe. And they are, for this one, it's the 2nd edition for Geology Underfoot. So I actually really, I guess it was a blessing that I didn't get it when I wanted to, because I don't know that the 2nd edition was out at that time. So this is going to go through the geology of where we live now, and I am very excited to go over this with my daughter. Now, because the way I intend to do this one actually is maybe a little different than what I would recommend otherwise. I would probably read this ahead of time and familiarize myself with it and then present it to my daughter. But because of the time constraint that we're going to have for this unit, I think I might just read these things aloud to her and also pick and choose parts of the book that are going to most relate to where we live. And same with this one, Roadside Geology. This will be more of a reference book. This is definitely not something that we're reading cover to cover, and we're only going to pick out, currently I would like to just pick out the things that are near us that we can literally go and visit versus ones that we would have to take road trips for. But I'm going to keep this on hand for when we do have our road trips so that I am prepared with little tidbits of information that I can share with my kids as we're going to different areas in this area or in Southern California. Now, I know that Geology Underfoot, there are other editions available for other areas in the US, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure with Roadside Geology the same is true. So if you want to get these but you don't live in this area, you check out at least maybe the publisher. I got these on Amazon, I believe, and check out for your area and see if you can get it for your area if you're interested in it. Okay, the next thing we're going to go through is this big box, but I think one item is really big, which is taking up the majority of this space. So don't worry, we will get through this hopefully kind of quickly. I love ordering from A Child's Dream. We've ordered from A Child's Dream for many, many years, but we're at a point in our homeschool where we're slowly winding down and coming to an end. So our curriculum halls and our homeschool halls are not as big as they used to be. We have enough books for, to make it through the end of our homeschooling, most likely. And we have enough other resources as well. So the little bits that we're getting are we're not getting as much as we used to get, I guess is what I'm trying to say. All right. Let me just fix that for you for a moment. And all right. Okay, let's dive in to all of this beautiful goodness. Okay. We have, and this is the big thing that I was thinking was taking up the majority of the box. Let me move this away for you for a moment. So this is the wool that we use to, this is actually the first time that I'm getting this kind of wool from A Child's Dream. In all of our homeschooling years, I've only purchased this kind of wool twice, about this size, maybe a little bit bigger. And we've been homeschooling for 20 years now. So this has lasted many, many years for the projects that we have done. So this is the stuffing that we use for, say, our knitted balls or other little things that we are sewing or knitting or, I wish we were crocheting, but we're not. And so this is the stuff that we would use in order to fill it up. And it is wool. And so that was the big item. Okay. I also got these plant dyed wool yarn, and this is for some projects that my daughter would like to do, and she really was drawn to these colors. So this is it's not very much, so I'm not sure what she's going to do with them, but the things that have been easy and delightful are still some of the more youthful, younger projects, and the knitted ball has been like a family favorite. We have so many knitted balls, and that's why we use this in order to fill it. And so I think that she's going to want to do that as well with these colors. Okay, she also wanted these two colors. This is yarn, I believe this is cotton yarn. Let me just confirm. Yep, 100% cotton. Both of these are cotton yarns, and she wanted these two colors for a project, but I don't know which project yet. And then when we were at the Waldorf Handwork conference, we were doing some watercolors as part of one of the workshops, and I realized that I don't have much Prussian blue, or pretty much had no Prussian blue, but I had the other blue, which the name escapes me at the moment. And when we were trying to make a green color, just shades of green, the other blue that comes in this set, the Stockmar set, gives a different color green than this color blue. I think, it's the aquamarine, gives a different color green versus this one. And you're of course mixing it with the lightest yellow. There is a yellow, there's an orange yellow, and there's like a rusty red, and then a stronger red color. So anyway, because the base color is a little bit different, it's going to give you different colors when you mix it. And I was looking to make a green and wasn't able to get the green that I wanted, and the instructor had recommended this one. I realized that we were out in all the years. We have a lot of the other colors, but we're out of that color. Okay, in here, this will be a lot of fun. Now, I've already made these in the past, but I do want to show you. I've been taught how to make our own knitting needles a few times, and now A Child's Dream carries the materials for you to make it on your own rather than buying them in bulk, which I think is brilliant, and they are such a good price. I believe that the dowels, a set of dowels, is either 50 cents or $1, and a set of these, the tips are either 50 cents or $1. So one is 50 cents, one is $1. I can't remember which is which, but if you're buying the set together, you still buy them individually, but if you're buying two dowels and two toppers, it is only $1.50, which I think is a great deal considering how much these would cost when they're, buying them when they're already finished. Of course, you could buy like the metal or plastic ones, but if you're looking to get the wooden ones, this is an amazing offer. Now, we've made them in the past, but I wanted to do this one more time with my daughter. She's my last one that I'm homeschooling. She's almost done with the elementary years, or elementary and middle school years, and so we're going to do this one. It's very easy to do. It just takes a little bit of time, but when the children or the students are done making them, I feel like they're very attached to the tools that they've made, and then the projects that they make with them. Okay, moving on, we have, a couple more things for the handwork that we are doing. So we are going to be doing some cross stitch and embroidery. And so we have some embroidery scissors, and we have some embroidery and I think cross stitch. Yeah. So one is for cross stitch and one I believe was for embroidery. And so these are number 23420. These are number 20, and these are 22, the size, if you're wondering. I'm not familiar with the sizes of the needles for cross stitch or embroidery. I just realized that when we were doing this most recently, the eye of the needle was too small for our embroidery floss, and we were spending more time trying to thread our needle than actually doing our project, and it was getting very frustrating. So I went ahead and I picked up some new needles and some embroidery scissors, because the scissors that we had as well were not fine enough to cut where we needed. So these are for our embroidery and cross stitch projects. Oh, and of course some fabric scissors, because if you know, fabric scissors get very dull if you use them for something other than fabric. And so what I learned many years ago was to tie a ribbon to your fabric scissors as a reminder that they are used for fabric, and then all the other scissors could be used for anything, but this way they stay nice and sharp for your fabric. Okay, I have, I don't remember what that is, but I do remember what this is. So I'll show you this one. So this, we, again, have enough supplies to finish out our homeschooling, but I realized that we were short on a couple of main lesson books. So I just replenished the colors that we needed, and we are still deep in our history units. Well, we're finishing up this year, but we still have a lot of history units coming up. And so I typically use blue, especially the portrait versus the landscape main lesson book. I use blue for our history, and this is just a personal choice. I like to use the more sedentary colors for our history because we're doing them in the winter and we're just cozying up and doing a lot of reading, and it's just the way I like to associate them. And then we'll use like yellow for our math and orange for our physics, and those are more like active main lesson blocks, and so I'm using more active, energizing colors. So anyway, that's just a personal preference. There is nothing that I know of that indicates that you should be doing your main lesson blocks according to the colors of your notebooks. But I do still like this format, which is larger. I've used a lot of different main lesson blocks over the year, I've used a lot of main lesson books over the years, and some of them are the smaller size with the lined pages as well as blank pages that are intended for upper elementary and middle school. But I still prefer these, which I believe are intended more for maybe like second, third grade, maybe even first grade, first, second, third grade. I prefer these because the format is larger. There's more space to do our writing and our drawing, which can be overwhelming for some students. So this may not be the best choice for your student. A smaller format may be better for them, but we still do our borders. My daughter does write in her own lines, even though I prefer that she doesn't at this time, but that's very typical. Like, students, to keep everything straight, or they prefer the line pages. It's completely fine. These ones also have the onion skin, just the paper in between the pages. This is a very thin paper. It's just to protect your artwork. In some instances, we have used this paper as well, but it's not intended to be used. It's used to protect the two pages. So I did replenish our blue notebooks. We did need more blue, and we did need one more green just to accompany the ones that we already have, since we are doing, since I'm not using the chalkboard as much, since it's just the one student, I'm doing the work right alongside with her so that she can copy from the main lesson, the book that I'm doing, either the drawing, or in some cases, although not usually, I'll do a written portion that she can copy. But for the most part, she's doing original narrations with very, very limited copy work and rarely dictation at this point. But those are other methods that you could use for your main lessons. All right, well, let's check this out because I forgot what I ordered. Oh, nice. Okay, this is exciting. Oh, now I remember. Okay, the first book, this is a very young, I believe a very young juvenile book, and we could only see the outside cover and then a description of it. And it's called My Bed, and it's Enchanting Ways to Fall Asleep Around the World. And the reason why I got this book, number one, if you look at the front cover, it looks like the cover is a photograph of embroidery with these different children in different types of beds from around the world. And the reason why I got this is because in grade 3, there is the dwellings around the world and main lesson block in the Waldorf curriculum, and I thought this would accompany it perfectly. And so I was debating whether to get it or not, and then I asked my daughter, I'm like, oh, they're probably too old for this, and she's like, no, like I want to see it. And so we bought it, and we're gonna go through it together. Let's see what age group this might be. This is so beautiful. It looks like each illustration is actually a photograph, and the photograph is of embroidery, which is beautiful. And the embroidery works really well with our grade level in a sense. The cross stitch is more of grade 4. The embroidery, I think, continues throughout the grades. And this looks like it's all been embroidered so beautifully, and maybe other techniques as well. And so the short part of the book here looks like it's very young and very juvenile, so maybe, you know, even preschool age. And then it looks like this part here provides a little bit of information, which would be the part that most appeals to my daughter because of her age, and for the adult reading this. But let me show you some other parts of the book, because this is stunning. Oh, this is so beautiful. Oh my goodness. I'm really, really glad that we got this one. Even though you might expect this to be for younger students, I think it's going to be a delight for older students as well as adults, especially with the information provided down here. I'm really, really pleased with this one, and really glad that we got it. Okay, we got Easy Crochet Dishcloths, and this is lovely. And this, I'm getting completely distracted. Oh, this looks so lovely. Wait, maybe that's why we got the cotton, maybe that's why we got the cotton yarn, is for this, this project. I thought that this book would be really great for us for two reasons. One is that it seems simple. It could teach us the techniques of crocheting. And because you're mostly crocheting a square or a rectangle, not only could you use it for it's intended for, but a lot of times when you are knitting with, say, a first grader or a second grader, you're creating blocks that are squares or rectangles and then changing them into other shapes. Like the ball that we make in grade 1 is actually just a rectangle. And so what I thought was that if we use this book to learn how to do the basic shape and the different techniques of crocheting, then we could use those pieces that we crochet to make other things as well. This is really nicely done. I'm very excited about this. Okay, the last book. I totally thought that I had this book in our homeschool library already, and we don't. And so it was recommended during the Waldorf Handwork conference. This book was referred to and recommended, and I don't know why in all the years we'd never gotten it. And so we still have a few years left because it's grades 1 through 8. And let me just, if you have never seen this one before, let me just show you. Look how thick it is. That is tremendous. There's no way to know. I had no idea that this book was this thick and this rich. So if you were on the fence about this book, or if you didn't even know it existed, I am really, really pleased with it, and honestly a bit regretful that I did not get this earlier in our homeschool journey, because of course we're at the end of it. But this is incredible. This is such a wonderful resource if you were looking to do something that's Waldorf inspired, or if you were looking just to add more illustrations into your main lesson blocks and unit studies, or into your homeschool in general. I highly recommend this book. That's pretty amazing. Okay. Just after I recorded that homeschool haul video, I got one more delivery for our homeschool materials, so I want to share that with you right now. These are mostly from Michael's craft store, and when we buy our art supplies, I'm usually buying them from Blick Art Supplies, but I did get these from Michael's, and I know that some of these items you can find at both art stores. So we did get some gesso, and this is the Michael's brand, and it's quite a large container, and we bought that to go with our canvases. We bought a ton of these a few years ago, and we only used a few of them, so I wanted to try to re-explore using acrylic paints on these canvases. And we mostly bought the student version, so we have a lot of these 8x10 canvases, and they come in a 2-pack. And I also got some acrylic paints. Now we bought a whole set of acrylic paints in all different colors, and those haven't arrived yet, but I wanted to make sure that we had enough black and white so that we could mix the colors and get different variations of those colors, lighter and darker and more muted colors. And so I do have the white, an iridescent white, and a black. And then we have our pastel chalk pencils, and we got these for our astronomy unit. We mostly need the white ones for our astronomy unit. We're going to be doing the constellations using chalk pastel pencils in our main lesson books. The main lesson book that we have for our astronomy unit has blue pages, so the chalk looks amazing, but I also saw that it had a lot of other colors as well, and I decided that we could maybe try these out for one of our main lesson blocks that are coming up. And in order to use chalk pastels in your main lesson books, and we have used them before, just the larger kind, I recommend getting some matte fixative, and this will help protect your work so that it doesn't smear onto other pages or smear onto your fingers or just kind of get distorted. This matte, this is actually the first time I'm using this particular brand. Again, I usually get from Blick Art Supplies, their matte fixative. And so I'm going to try this one. Hopefully it works just as well, but that is so that you can protect your work once you are done using or working with chalks. I hope that you enjoyed this look at our latest homeschool haul. You can find links and details to these items on the blog post that accompanies this video. You can find that link down in the description box below. And if you'd like to see the projects that we're doing with these items or how we're homeschooling in general, you can find me on Instagram and on TikTok at Pepper and Pine.